Hello, my constant reader friends. I'm back. I'm Tad, and this is Tad Reads Books and Stuff. So what are we doing today? Well, today we're just going to do a recap of what I was reading last week. I do have two book reviews I want to go over. Hopefully it won't take too long in the video. But let me start off with something really cool. I backed a Kickstarter. Oh geez, had to be about 6-7 months ago, and it finally came in, and it is H.P. Lovecraft's Beauty and the Beast comic book series. There are 4 books. I don't know if you can see that really well. It's a pretty cool cover. Number 3 and number 4. Of course, it's a self-published comic book series that's published by Morbid Comics. It's written by Trevor Markwart. Trevor Markwart. Cool name. Written and drawn by this author. I don't know really a lot about it, except for he says that H.P. Lovecraft was down on his luck and needed money, and he was approached by some publishers to rewrite The Beauty and the Beast. This is what came out of it, but it went to the company that hired him. Apparently, while his manuscript was in the mail, the man who was the owner of the company, ran the company, whatever, died. His wife read the manuscript and thought it was blasphemous and horrible, and said that she would send it back to him, and said that if she ever saw it printed anywhere, she would, sue him. It's all a joke. I mean, it's just made up. This never happened. But it's the story that this Trevor guy is using to tell this story. Supposedly he found this manuscript and decided to make the comic book out of it. But that's fun. The artwork is kind of strange in it. I'll show some more of it when I actually read it. But I just wanted to show you, it's pretty cool. I got this Kickstarter in the mail. And you know I'm a fan of H.P. Lovecraft. All right, so what have I done so far this past week? As you know, I was reading this series, Dark Tower by Stephen King. It's a Marvel comic book adaptation. And I read last week, The Gunslinger Born. This week, I just finished the second book in the series, The Long Road Home. That was pretty cool. A little bit shorter than the first one. And I'm going to be starting today the third book in the series, called Treachery. There's the front and the back. So that's the third book in the series. After this, there is a one-shot called The Sorcerer. And then there's one more book after that. And that completes the first series. There's 3 series. I don't have them all. All I have is the first series, really. Next, what happened? Y'all know that I read Wendy's Button Box last week. Finished that. This week I'm reading Wendy's Magic Feather. You can see I'm about 60% done with it. I should finish it in the next 2 or 3 days at the most. These are quick reads, these books. So far so good. Wendy's Magic Feather. And then of course once I finish that, probably Tuesday, I'll go on to Wendy's Final Task, which is the last book in the trilogy. So I'm excited about moving forward with this. Very easy read, short books. Then what am I going to read next? Well, I just finished listening to Dreamcatcher. We'll be going over that soon, coming up. I finished Valor last week. We'll discuss that. So starting tomorrow, I'm going to start listening to Danse Macabre finally. Like I said, I'm trying to use this month to kind of start getting myself back into catching up on a lot of the Stephen King novels that I have not read yet. So that's going to be my next listen. And this is kind of short as far as the audio goes. It's only like 18 hours. So I will be probably finishing that easily next week. And then I have to decide what I'm going to listen to next. All right, so that's that. So let's first talk about Valor. So as you know, this is the second book in John Gwynn's The Faithful and the Fallen. And let me just go through the numbers real quick. It had 680 pages. It was published on July 2nd, 2014. Now I listened to this. I of course listened to the first one, Malice. I tried to go to my local BAM, Books A Million, local, well, 50 miles away from me anyways, and they didn't carry any of his novels. So I couldn't pick them up in physical form. I'll probably have to go online and find them. I'll probably buy them online. Anyways, I do want to have them. As you know, I reviewed Malice and I loved it. Classic high fantasy. A little slow, some people think, but I liked it. He really started to develop the world, and the characters were great. The story, I could see the story coming. It's classic, you know, good versus evil. A lot of characters. So I was really looking forward to the second book, Valor. Oh man, I just think it does suffer a little bit from the sophomore slump. A lot of people really liked this book. I think it even got a higher rating on Goodreads than the first novel. A lot of people just really loved it. A lot of people didn't, of course. And I'm kind of in the middle. I think it was a letdown from the first book. For me, it was. Why? I didn't think that it progressed the story that much. Yes, there's progression in the story. The plot does develop a little bit more, but not as much as I had hoped to. He did throw in a number of more named characters in this novel. So now there's a ton of them. He did not take a lot of time, though, developing these new characters. So all of a sudden, here's this new character, new named character, and they're playing a little bit of a role in the story, and you really kind of have no idea where they came from a little bit. So that let me down a little bit. Oh, the magic. Again, I like magics in my books, my fantasy, even my science fiction to an extent. You know, something to remove me from the real world that I'm living in. There is magic in this, but he really does not give you any rules. He doesn't develop the system. At one point, so the main protagonist is, I guess you're going to have to say, is Corbin. There's several, of course, but Corbin is the main protagonist in the story. And he can do anything, apparently. He just, whatever he wants, he can heal you. He can ride a horse like crazy, nobody's business. He can fight amazingly, even though he's a teenager. He knows histories and he studies. Well, there's one point where he's working on magic and he's with this other character, Heb. He says, so, Heb does this little thing with the weather. And he says, so I can do that? And Heb's like, yeah, you can do that. And he says, well, basically, I'm paraphrasing. He's like, well, how do I do it? And Heb tells him, well, you think about what you want to do and then you speak it. And that's it. That's the magic explanation. Even Corbin says, what? That's all I have to do is think about it and then talk about it. And he's like, basically, and that's about it. you don't know anything else. There's another character that has some magical, I guess it's like a stone. Oh, I won't get into that. He just squeezes it and holds it, and he can control other people, apparently. I don't know. I didn't like that. What else? Some of the problems I had. So, I mean, it is still classic, I guess, fantasy, but it seems to me, and I don't know if this was John Gwynn doing this, or if this was planned, or even if Orbit, the publisher, directed him to do this, but I think they pretty much said, we need more grim and we need more dark in this novel. Because holy hell, this book is tremendously more grimdark than Malice, the first book. And one of the things that I didn't like about it was that. Now maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm not liking this new style of grimdark fantasies. I hope I'm not just an old fogey that doesn't like new things. But I've got to tell you, this book, for 680 pages long is this book, probably a good 400 of pages. I didn't count, of course, but it was chapter after chapter after chapter of battle, fighting, killing, swords, blood splurting, heads decapitated, fight after fight after fight. You barely can catch your breath, and you're going on to another battle, another war, they even have pit fightings. So these guys are in the pits and they're fighting and killing, and just blood flying everywhere for a good 400 pages of the novel. Even the cool stuff with the wolves and Storm and the giants, and it kind of wore me out. I'm sorry. It was just page after page after page of fighting. And I think it could have been better if he had a little bit more pages developing the story and the plot and the world and the magic and things like that. Maybe even going more into character growth, which the first book did great. So yes, this book was a little bit of a downer for me. I was really, really excited about moving on with it. It's not my favorite so far. There's 4 books in the series. I'm definitely going to carry on with it. I liked the book. It's all right. I just I had some issues with it that really, drug me down a little bit. So anyways, I'm going to continue with that. So that's Valor. Let's move on to Dreamcatcher. So I didn't read it. I listened to it. I guess that's reading it. So this is Dreamcatcher. Now, let's do the numbers real quick. Of course, it's by Stephen King. It has 688 pages, and it was published on March 1st of 2002. So I've had it in my library for a long time, my bookshelf of shame, and I finally listened to it. I watched the movie years ago. I didn't think the movie was horrible. I know a lot of people panned it, but I didn't think it was horrible. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's entertaining to me. So what's going on here? So, a lot of people are on the similar, I think, to a lot of books, I'm sure. Some people really loved the book. Some people really hated the book. One of the reasons why I read it right now is because next week I'm planning on doing my bottom 5 Stephen King books. My worst 5 Stephen King books that I've read of his. And because I've heard so many people really didn't like this book, I thought maybe I need to read it because it might be on my bottom 5. Well, spoiler alert, it's not. It's not going to be in my bottom 5. It's not my bottom 5. It's not his most outstanding book. And yes, he had just gotten, he was recovering from almost being killed by being hit by a van. And he wrote the whole book, I guess, in cursive, in longhand. Like a lot of his books, it's bloated. there might be 100 or so pages that don't need to be in this book. It's almost, I don't know, it's almost kind of like 2 books in one. I have heard a lot of people describe this book as a cross between it and the Tommyknockers, the amazing It and the not so amazing Tommyknockers. And I think that's a fair assessment. Not just because there's the alien, part of it to reference it to Tommyknockers, but there's other things. But anyways, yeah, it takes place in Derry. You have these 4 friends, Jonesy, Pete, the Beaver, and Henry. And their friendship that they develop with a mentally, physically handicapable young boy called Duddits. Now, I have to have a disclaimer here. I have an older brother who is mentally and physically handicapable. So a lot of these chapters, especially dealing with Duddits, hit home with me and was very close to my heart. But that being said, it's still almost it's very similar to It with these kids. He does this. Stephen King loves this. He starts with these kids that are young and you watch them grow or whatever, and he develops them along the way. Great character development in his books. But they start off, when they're kids and they meet Duddits and they tell that story, but they're also older and they're all having their problems, and every year they go to this hunting lodge called Camp Hole in the Wall. Not very original, but whatever. And they go to this camp and they do hunting, but who knows how much hunting they do. Guys go off to these hunting camps and they spend more time drinking and playing cards than anything else. But they've been going to this hunting camp since they were kids with their parents, their fathers. And it starts there, and then it goes, a lot of the first half of the book is basically in this camp and how they meet a person, and that person is infected by aliens. There's these spores. It's another theme that Stephen King has used a lot in if it has to do with aliens. He's got this fungus or this growth or this mold or something that grows into you. Of course, you've seen it in Creepshow, in Tommyknockers, and other things that he writes some short stories. So that's a big part of it. This person that they meet at the camp is infected. There's a lot of people pan this because there's a lot of, flatulence and shit and this thing called the butt weasel, the Greys, the alien. It is a crazy ride. The book is, and I enjoyed it. So you have that first section. Then after that, they break out, and now there's a chase. The second half is basically a chase. You meet the main antagonist, of course, of the book is U.S. Army Colonel Abraham Kurtz, and I think he's a great antagonist. He is something else. You got to read it. But anyway, and then it's a travel and it's a chase. This is what got me the worst. So I'm reading the book. It's okay. I'm listening to it. It's okay. I'm remembering the movie. The movie, again, I told you, I think it was okay. There are a lot of differences between the book, of course, and the movie. But, so here's the problem that I had with this book. I didn't mind it. It is a little bloated. There is a lot of fart humor and shit humor and stuff like that. There are aliens in it, and some people are put off by when he does aliens. But you get to the last 100 pages of this book, and I really, if I was reading it, I don't do this, but I would have thrown the book across the room. I got so angry at the last 100 pages of this book. Again, this is something that people have complained about Stephen King forever. He doesn't know how to end a book, it seems. Well, you're on this high ride, you know, going crazy, chasing these people. You get to the end. Now, one of these guys is a trained military killer. They're chasing down the alien because he's going to try to infect the water system and infect everybody. So they're chasing him down. They catch up to him, and he's trying to shove this infected dog down a well to infect the water, and the dog won't go down. So now all of a sudden it's taking him forever. The shit weasel comes out of the dog and flies across the room, and now is slowly crawling towards the well, and they bust through the door. They've been chasing him. This trained killer, you know, all he has to do is shoot the damn thing, and he freezes. And all of a sudden, Stephen King does, other authors do this too. You're in this speed, right? You're going, and then all of a sudden, all he has to do is shoot him, and he freezes, and he starts thinking. And now Stephen King is describing his thoughts for another 10 pages, rehashing things that you've already seen in the story that have already happened. Another problem with this book, he repeats himself several times throughout the book. So he freezes, and then of course, right before the thing goes in the hole, he shoots it. That's not the only other thing. There's another part where this Mr. Gray, the alien, is inhabited. You know, he's gone into one of the characters' bodies and it's taken him over, but he's still there, locked in a room. Comes to a point where he can kill Mr. Gray. He's got the weapon. Mr. Gray is laying on like a gurney, and all he has to do is cut his throat. And he goes to cut his throat, and then he stops. And you have 10 pages of Stephen King explaining his thoughts, rehashing things that have already happened in the book. Oh, it drove me crazy. Seriously. The last 100 pages just drove me crazy. Anyways, overall, I like the book. I would suggest reading it to people for sure, especially if you're a constant reader, a Stephen King constant reader. Read the book, watch the movie, see what you think. Not horrible, not great, not the worst. That's my opinion. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope everybody has a great day. Please, if you liked anything on this channel, please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like. Throw me some comments. I love answering comments. I like seeing comments, of course. All right, guys. Have a good day. Peace out.